But they conquered us.
Yeah, there were wars and deaths. These have always been present in every conquest over the past millennium, ever since man existed and warfare was invented. It's a bit irresponsible to judge past events with our current mindset, hence, let's put on the glasses of the 15th and 16th centuries and take a look at how the world was back then. Focusing on the historical events that took place during the early years of the conquest of America, treating them as special, unique and local, is a rather foolish view. Pitiful, maybe a bit self-centered and victim-like. If we view history as a series of global events, during the same period of Spaniards and Portuguese arriving in America, equally important events were taking place in Europe, Asia and Africa. A century before Columbus's voyage, the Black Death had ravaged Europe, a pandemic that took the lives of a third of the European population. A century later, in 1453, the Turks took Constantinople, a fundamental event that altered the geopolitical landscape. Around that time, a certain Vlad Tepes, nicknamed the Impaler, was busy skewering thousands of Turks as if they were kebabs. Meanwhile, before financing Columbus's expedition, the Catholic monarchs completed the Reconquista with the taking of Granada in 1492, somewhat restoring what had been the Visigothic kingdom centuries before. Afterwards, the War of Naples broke out between Spain and France with major battles like the Battle of Seminara.
The Battle of Cerignola in 1503 saw the first use of firearms that decimated flesh.
A few years later, the Turks defeated the Mamluks and took over Egypt and Arabia. The Songhai Islamic Empire dominated West Africa for most of the century, expanding its influence until fratricidal strife weakened it, and it was conquered by fierce mercenaries. When Charles V arrived in Spain, he had to quell the Great Revolt of the communities. The Spanish monarchy and the Holy Roman Empire defeated France at the Battle of Pavia in 1525. The following year, the Ottoman Empire defeated Hungary at the Battle of Mohacs, where King Louis II of Hungary himself died. Around this time, the pirate Barbarossa, feared throughout the Mediterranean, also swept through the south of France and conquered Algiers and Tunis. It was a miracle at that time not to see Moors on the coast. Tens of thousands of Christian Europeans were captured by Barbary pirates in ship raids to enslave them.
The Portuguese had also begun to trade with African enslavers.
In 1527, Rome was sacked by the emperor's troops. 20 years later, Ivan IV of Russia, famously known as Ivan the Terrible, the man who likely killed his son in a fit of rage, was crowned. He was the first Tsar in Russian history following a civil war, characterized by numerous murders, massacres and fires in Moscow that resulted in the destruction of entire districts. The Russians started expanding eastward. During the 1552 siege of Kazan, tens of thousands lost their lives. In India, the Mughal Empire was gradually defeating its enemies and ruled India with an iron fist for 2 centuries.
In 1571, a battle of epic proportions took place, the naval battle of Lepanto, between the Holy League and the Ottoman Empire. One of the most significant encounters the past centuries have witnessed, unlike anything to expect in the future. As Cervantes would describe, the following year marked the massacre of Saint Bartholomew during the brutal European wars of religion that occurred in the wake of the emergence of Protestantism. Approximately 3,000 Huguenots were murdered in a single night. Thousands more were killed in the following days. On the other hand, the Spaniards were still very concerned with the Anglo-Spanish War, even in the Pacific, fighting Japanese pirates in Cagayan, Philippines. But above all, they were bleeding out with the costly and unending War of Flanders, full of war days.
By the end of the 16th century, the Japanese were invading Korea.
The world at that time was violent and a lot of things were happening, but we are not continuously crying genocide, genocide, genocide.